May 1943, North Atlantic Ocean. A German U-boat is hunting a convoy, but the convoy is hunting back. A British destroyer picks up the submarine on sonar. Range 1,200 yards. The crew prepares to attack. But here's what's different. They're not going to drop depth charges behind them. They're not going to aim where the submarine is. They're going to fire forward into empty water. And when those projectiles hit, the U-boat won't know what killed it. This is the story of the Hedgehog, the weapon that changed submarine warfare by breaking every rule. The weapon that tripled the kill rate against U-boats, not by being bigger, not by being faster, but by doing something that seemed completely backwards. It stopped aiming at the target. Let me explain why that's genius. The Battle of the Atlantic is at its peak. German U-boats are sinking Allied ships faster than they can be replaced. Every month, hundreds of thousands of tons of shipping go to the bottom. Supplies, food, fuel, weapons, everything Britain needs to survive. The U-boats are winning, and the Allies are desperate. Now they have a weapon to fight back, the depth charge. It's a barrel packed with explosives. You drop it off the back of your ship, it sinks to a preset depth, then it explodes. If you drop it close enough to a submarine, the pressure wave crushes the hull. Simple, effective, in theory. But in practice, there's a massive problem, and it's killing Allied sailors by the thousands. Here's how a depth charge attack actually works. Your destroyer is hunting a U-boat. Your sonar operator picks up a contact. He calls out the range and bearing. Contact! Bearing 045, range 800 yards. You turn the ship toward the target. You close the distance, 800 yards, 600 yards, 400 yards, 200 yards, and then you lose contact. Completely. Because here's the problem. Sonar only works when you're moving slowly, and it only works when the submarine is ahead of you. The moment your ship passes over the submarine, you're blind. You can't hear it anymore. Your sonar is useless. So now you're guessing. You're dropping depth charges based on where you think the submarine might be. Maybe it's still moving forward. Maybe it's turning. Maybe it's diving deeper. Maybe it's stopped completely. You have no idea. You're dropping explosives into the ocean and hoping you get lucky. And here's the worst part. While you're dropping those depth charges, you're moving away from the target. By the time the depth charges explode, you're hundreds of yards past where the submarine was. So even if your calculations were perfect, even if you guessed exactly where the sub would be, you're still probably going to miss. Because submarines don't sit still. They're maneuvering, changing depth, changing course. By the time your depth charges reach the right depth and explode, the submarine could be anywhere. The kill rate for depth charge attacks in early 1942 is about 7%. That means out of every 100 attacks, only 7 actually sink the submarine. 93 times out of 100, the U-boat escapes. That's not a weapon. That's a lottery ticket. Now let's talk about what happens from the submarine's perspective. You're a U-boat captain. You hear the destroyer's propellers getting closer. You know it's coming. You order the boat to go deep, silent running. Everyone holds their breath. The destroyer passes overhead. Then you hear it. Click, click, click. Depth charges hitting the water. You count the seconds. 5, 10, 15. Boom! The explosion rocks the boat. Lights flicker, pipes rattle. But you're still alive, because the destroyer guessed wrong. Maybe they set the depth charges too shallow. Maybe they dropped them too far to the side. Either way, you survived. And now you know something important. The destroyer is blind. They lost sonar contact. They're dropping charges randomly. So what do? You change course. You go deeper or shallower. You do something unpredictable. And by the time the next salvo of depth charges explodes, you're long gone. This is why U-boats are winning. Because depth charges only work if you guess right, and submarines are very good at making sure you guess wrong. The British Admiralty knows this is a problem. They're losing ships, losing men, losing the war. They need something better, so they start asking questions. Why do we drop depth charges behind us? Why do we have to pass over the submarine to attack it? Why do we lose sonar contact at the worst possible moment? And one engineer, a man named Lieutenant Commander Charles Goodeve, has an idea. What if we didn't drop charges behind us? What if we fired forward instead? What if we attacked while we still had sonar contact? What if we never lost sight of the target? It sounds simple, but it changes everything. The concept is called the Hedgehog, and here's how it works. Instead of depth charges that roll off the back of the ship, you mount a launcher on the front. The launcher fires 24 small projectiles forward in a circular pattern. Each projectile weighs 65 pounds. Each one has a contact fuse. That's the key, a contact fuse. Traditional depth charges explode at a preset depth no matter what, even if they miss. Even if the submarine is nowhere near, they explode and alert the submarine that it's under attack. But Hedgehog projectiles only explode if they hit something. If they miss, they sink to the bottom without exploding. The submarine never knows it was attacked. So here's what this means tactically. You're a destroyer captain. You pick up a U-boat on sonar. Range, 1,000 yards. You maintain sonar contact. You track the submarine continuously. 800 yards, 600 yards, 400 yards. You're still tracking it. You still know exactly where it is. At 250 yards, you fire the Hedgehog. 24 projectiles launch forward in an elliptical pattern about 130 feet across. They are through the air. They splash into the water right where your sonar says the submarine is. And here's the beautiful part. You still have sonar contact. You're still tracking the target. You can see if your projectiles are going to hit or miss. If they miss, the submarine doesn't know you attacked. It keeps moving predictably. You can attack again. But if they hit, boom! The submarine doesn't have time to react. One moment it's there, the next moment it's gone. No warning, no chance to evade, just instant destruction. The first Hedgehog systems are installed on British destroyers in 1942. The results are immediate and shocking. The kill rate goes from 7% to 25%, 3 times more effective than depth charges. Some ships report even higher success rates, 30%, 40%. Why such a dramatic improvement? 3 reasons. First, you maintain sonar contact throughout the attack. You're not guessing, you're tracking. Second, the submarine doesn't know it's under attack until it's too late. No warning explosions, no time to evade. Third, if you miss, you can attack again, immediately. The submarine doesn't run away because it doesn't know you're there. You can fire, wait, track, fire again. Keep firing until you hit. It's not about luck anymore, it's about persistence. German U-boat captains start reporting something terrifying. We were attacked without warning, no depth charges, just sudden explosions. They don't understand what's happening. One moment they're evading a destroyer, the next moment their hull is breached and they're sinking. The psychological effect is devastating. Depth charges you can predict. You hear them drop. You count the seconds. You know if you survived. But Hedgehog? You don't hear anything. Then suddenly your submarine is exploding around you. It's random. It's invisible. It's terrifying. U-boat crews start calling Allied destroyers Hedgehog ships, and they learn to fear them more than anything else in the Atlantic. Now here's what makes this story even better. The United States Navy initially rejects the Hedgehog. They look at the design and say, "This doesn't make sense. The projectiles are too small. 65 pounds of explosives isn't enough to kill a submarine. We need bigger depth charges, not smaller projectiles." The British response is simple. Just try it. So the U.S. Navy reluctantly installs Hedgehogs on a few destroyers, and the results speak for themselves. USS England, May 1944. This destroyer sinks 6 Japanese submarines in 12 days. 6 submarines, 12 days using the Hedgehog. It's the most successful anti-submarine patrol in history, all because the weapon lets you maintain contact. All because you're attacking forward instead of backward. All because you're not guessing anymore. After that, the U.S. Navy can't install Hedgehogs fast enough. By the end of the war, hundreds of Allied ships have them, and the U-boat kill rate keeps climbing. Let me give you a specific example of how deadly this weapon is. March 1944. HMS Starling is hunting U-boats in the Atlantic. They pick up a contact. The captain, Commander Frederick Walker, is one of the most experienced sub-hunters in the Royal Navy. He tracks the U-boat carefully, maintains perfect sonar contact. At the right range, he fires the Hedgehog. 24 projectiles splash into the water. Seconds pass. Then boom! Multiple explosions. Direct hits. The U-boat U-264 is destroyed instantly. 52 men killed. Total time from detection to destruction, less than 4 minutes. This is what Hedgehog does. It turns submarine hunting from a game of chance into a science. You find them, you track them, you kill them. No drama, no uncertainty, just cold, efficient lethality. But here's what's fascinating about the Hedgehog. It's not high-tech. It's not complicated. It's literally just a mortar that fires forward instead of dropping charges backward. The genius isn't in the engineering. The genius is in the concept. Someone looked at the problem and asked, "Why are we doing it this way?" And when they couldn't find a good answer, they tried something different. That's innovation. Not building something more complex, just questioning the assumptions everyone takes for granted. Why do we attack after passing over the target? Because that's how depth charges work. But what if we didn't use depth charges? What if we attacked before passing over the target? That one question changed everything. By 1944, the Battle of the Atlantic is turning in the Allies' favor. U-boat losses are skyrocketing. Convoy losses are dropping. And the Hedgehog is a major reason why. German Naval Command starts pulling U-boats back from the Atlantic. The risk is too high. The kill rate is too high. The weapon that was supposed to starve Britain into surrender is now a death sentence for the crews using it. And a big part of that shift is because Allied destroyers stopped aiming at where submarines were and started aiming at where submarines are. Present tense, real time, continuous tracking. It seems like a small change, but it's the difference between 7% success and 25% success. The difference between losing the Battle of the Atlantic and winning it. Now, let's talk about what happened after the war. The Hedgehog becomes standard equipment on destroyers around the world. Navies everywhere adopt the forward-firing principle. Modern anti-submarine weapons all follow the same concept. Fire toward the target while maintaining contact. Don't lose sight of what you're attacking. The principle is so fundamental now that it seems obvious. But in 1942, it was revolutionary. And here's what's interesting. The Hedgehog isn't the most famous weapon of World War II. Most people have never heard of it. It doesn't have the glamour of the atomic bomb or the P-51 Mustang. But it saved thousands of lives. It sank hundreds of submarines. It helped win the Battle of the Atlantic. And it did it not by being bigger or more powerful, but by being smarter, by questioning the assumptions, by asking why we do things the way we do them, and by having the courage to try something different, even when everyone says it won't work. Here's what haunts me about this story, though. How many other problems are we solving the wrong way? How many times are we attacking after we've lost sight of the target? How many depth charges are we dropping into empty water, hoping we get lucky? The Hedgehog teaches us something important. Sometimes the solution isn't to do what you're doing, but harder. Sometimes the solution is to stop and ask, why are we doing it this way in the first place? The Allies spent years trying to make better depth charges, bigger explosions, more of them, faster sinking rates. But they were optimizing the wrong thing. The problem wasn't the depth charges. The problem was losing sonar contact. The problem was attacking blind. Once they fixed that problem, everything else fell into place. We all do this. In business, in relationships, in life. We keep trying to get better at something that doesn't work. We optimize the wrong variable. We make the same mistake more efficiently. And we never step back and ask, is there a completely different way to approach this? The Hedgehog is a reminder that sometimes the best solution is the one that makes everyone uncomfortable, the one that breaks the rules, the one that seems backwards until you understand why it works. The Battle of the Atlantic was won by convoys, by codebreakers, by air cover, by courage. But it was also won by a weird little weapon that fired forward instead of backward, that attacked while maintaining contact instead of guessing, that only exploded on a direct hit instead of alerting the enemy to every miss. It was won by someone asking why and not accepting because that's how we've always done it as an answer. And that's a lesson worth remembering. The U-boats were terrifying because they were invisible. They struck without warning. They disappeared before you could fight back. The Hedgehog turned that around. It made the hunters invisible instead. It struck without warning. It killed before the submarine could react. It took the enemy's greatest advantage and made it their greatest vulnerability. That's not just good tactics. That's psychological warfare. And it worked. So the next time you're facing a problem that won't go away, ask yourself, am I dropping depth charges behind me, hoping I get lucky? Or am I maintaining contact and firing forward at what I can actually see? Because the difference between those two approaches isn't just about submarines. It's about how we solve problems, how we think about challenges, how we decide what to optimize. The Hedgehog succeeded because it optimized for the right thing, not bigger explosions, not more projectiles, but continuous contact with the target. Everything else followed from that one insight.